Hey everyone, welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdarchist Ted, hanging out at Gen Con with Andrew Armstrong, special guest. Today, we're going to talk about why Homebrew Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition is the true and lawful path. Jump down to the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy. All right, Andrew, you want to tell everybody who you are, what you do, and where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, Nerdarchists, Nerdarchy Army. My name's Andrew. I'm on the Dawnforgedcast channel, and you may have seen me on various collaborations. Dave usually brings me in when he can't get a better guest for your live chat. I'm pretty sure that's right, yes?
I wouldn't say it's when you can't get a better guest. It's when the guest happens to fall, doesn't show. Right. You're a good guy to come talk to.
Yeah,
so.
we've been Nerdarchy and DFC. We've done collaborations, and we're doing one here in person.
So, and you're not just on DFC. You are DFC.
I am. I'm a one-man show, which means that certain areas are lacking, where you have a great dynamic of back and forth. It's just me, so that's kind of torrential for some people.
But you have, very many subscribers who are quite comfortable with that. So I wouldn't feel too bad.
It's working, yeah. I'm also kind of known as the, professional dungeon master, maybe something that I'm doing, getting paid to be a DM for various, mostly middle-aged men, I would say, yeah.
But, that's the thing. So today we're going to get into homebrew content and basically why we think people should use it, the steps that we get into dealing with it, why people should use it, and we'll start.
Yeah, there's a misconception, maybe we can start here, of third party equals bad. That if it's not from D&D Wizards of the Coast, then it's somehow garbage or broken or unbalanced and is not legit. And I get you want some quality control perhaps, but many of the third-party publishers are people who just worked on the main book who need more things to go and do.
For instance, I was talking to Dan Dillon earlier today. He has written for Kobold Press and Wizards of the Coast. So why is his material for Wizards okay, but Kobold Press not?
Right. I was actually reading through his Midgard stuff, and that content's really good. It's quality. It's well thought out. Not all homebrew is great, right? There's certain things you find on forums. There's a vetting process, but just because it's homebrew doesn't mean can't do it.
So, we have to look at, what becomes official content, what becomes homebrew, what is out there. So your options are, all right, we have printed and legal books that are out there and that say Wizards of the Coast on it. All right, we know those things are tested to the Wizards approved level, and
mostly.
And whatever that level is. But you guys out there, you have the ability to say, okay, well, I'm acceptable at that level, or I accept it at that level. Then we have the Unearthed Arcana, and there's people that are very much on the fence of, well, it's not official material, it's playtest, so people are like, well, I don't want that in my game, it's unbalanced, it's this, it's that. And some things direct lift and get put into books later. Other things go through massive overhauls, and some things we never see again. What happened to that, the Rune Mage? The lone and only prestige class that was talked about for 5th edition.
Psionics has sat on the sidelines for quite a while now.
And they're out there, and people want to, play with them. But if your group doesn't allow unofficial content, non-Watts approved, nope, not going to happen. So, that's one level. Then you have third-party material, something that's been published, something that, let's face it, if they're going to publish it, they've play-tested it, possibly to the same degree, if not more, than what Wizards is doing. Now, there is a mixed bag of stuff that's out there that's printed, and for your group, you may or may not, like that content, and that's going to be up to you. You always, as the GM, get to determine what's going to be in your game.
And I think that's one of the, I also want to touch on our own homebrew. But
that was going to be the next step.
The segue. But the idea that you are, what WotC is, the official content is content that is for mass consumption. But when you make your own stuff for your group, it's personalized to that game. You don't need to worry about balance compared to everybody else. And if you're only sticking with what's in the book, then you kind of deny yourself access to the creativity, creating characters and enabling character ideas that are not supported in the text.
Right.
But that's in the spirit of the game to create those things and make your personal character, and the rules or guidelines as a base.
If you have a person in your game who's like, I want to do this, there is no this for them to play with. Okay, well, maybe if you take this class and you become a multi-class thing, you can kind of sort of get there, but it's not getting all the flavor, all the things that you want to have happen. Then it's like, okay, well, do you feel confident enough to say, let me come up with a new subclass. Let me come up with some kind of archetype that's unique to my world. Well, now you can take that and say, all right, well, is that an order? Is that a cult? Is that something that has an organization in my world that is going to make my world that much richer, that much deeper? Number one, I'm going to make my player happy because I've delivered what they wanted. Number two, you have just rooted that character into this particular world, making the world richer for it. Oh, well, there's an organization. Now they've got allies. It's an organization. The organization's going to have enemies.
Right.
Now you've got,
Hooks.
an antagonist to play around with. Hooks galore. That's, why would you not want to do this?
Right.
I can't find any downside.
No, there's a tier to the approach to creating. First is the reflavoring. Can you just describe it differently to achieve what you're after?
Mm-hmm.
However, after that, if you can't make it such that this class, if I just say that the staff grows flowers when he casts the spell, okay, that's not in the book. Can you just change it? Okay, yeah, it's a fireball, it's an ice ball. Okay, we can do these changes. After that, though, there is something of an appeal to have. Some players really like to have it written on a sheet, written in paper somewhere that legitimizes it in, here's your new custom ability, or here's this new archetype. And you work from least impact up to making your things. And I'm sure we both have guides to making your own archetypes. Follow what's already in the book. Follow the Unearthed Arcana, and you can see that there's a breakdown. They get certain levels, certain abilities.
Well, I mean, you could literally rip out the player's handbook and say, all right, I want to make a new subclass for fighter. All right, how many class things do they get in that subclass? Right. It's typically 4 to 6 things, depending upon which class you choose. That's not a whole lot of abilities. And let's face it, if you're playing a long, protracted game, you don't have to design it all at once.
Right.
Most things have combat abilities and ribbon abilities, so that as you build it, okay, well, not everything is going to make them more mechanically superior. So throw in some ribbon abilities. Let's face it, the assassin getting disguise kit and that kind of stuff is going to make them a better assassin overall, but mechanically, they're not getting advantages to that unless they role play. Oh, well, I want to make this disguise and I want to be that person to be able to get in the prime position.
You can customize it to your campaign. I think I forget about it sometimes too. The idea, this is just for these 5 people. This is not, you're not probably, when you're making and thinking of homebrew, you're not thinking of how this balances in Adventurers League or whether this is going to be officially mandated. It's these 6 people, their interests, and what they want to get out of the game, give it to them. Don't feel like, because you're not going to find the answer in official books to the very unique microcosm of individuals that make up this table.
Now, like, you can decide, all right, well, I want to search the DM's Guild or, Drive Through RPG and see what other things are out there. And you can use it to either fulfill those niches that aren't in the official content. You can use it as, a guide, a building block for you to make your own. And, there's plenty of things that are out there that you can look at and say, okay, well, the DM's Guild has this, the PHB has this, Xanathar's Guide to Everything has something completely different. Well, now I've got a pyramid of balance and power. Can I find something in the middle? Now I know it's balanced. It doesn't have to be, the best. And if something is a little bit skewed, but nobody at your table cares, who gives a crap? Right? Just have fun with it. As I go back to those points, your players are going to be happy. They're going to be more engrossed in the game, and they're going to want to come to your table because you've done a little bit of extra work.
I think the point you made about you don't have to have it all done is a really good one, in that the Dungeons & Masters Guide has boons, and that initial idea set me off on, for all my campaigns, every 4 or 5 sessions or so, I create, based on what the character did, something that doesn't exist mechanically but reflects their character's choices in the game. Something very simple like your sneak attack, he's been doing it forever, increases to a D8. And that's it. That's here's the thing that's based on your character. Your entangle does not entangle your allies. And this sense of you can create the character you want mechanically with very small additions. Again, it's not a balance race. You're not on the same server as a million other people. It's just you right there in that group. And if everyone's getting a little bit, making your own, coming up with creative ideas, comparing, using, like you're saying, the already existing content as a baseline, is very rewarding. Yeah. The players just love when, and I like puns and those kind of things. So it'll be some sort of pun, the name of their ability, and then here's something to improve what you've been doing. Because D&D 5e, you don't really get better. I mean, your proficiency bonus goes up. Right. That's it. Yeah. Sometimes the cantrip damage goes up, but there's not a big sense of progression quite as much in the smaller areas. So I find that you can add those. You can add. In one of my campaigns, it was Obscuring Mist. The character cast it a bunch of times. Okay, you've demonstrated this. Now you can cast Obscuring Mist, and your allies can see through it. That's something at now level 3, and you don't worry about balance. Again, everyone gets a little bit.
If you have a character or player and they have a favored spell, you can absolutely do that. Your players can see through it. The area increases. You can get, once a day, you can cast it at a higher level that doesn't actually cost that higher spell slot. Right. You can go in a variety of different directions that will make your players happy and be like, oh, I want to do this, and the DM has rewarded me for my efforts. And like those things are just
the DM is paying attention. It's not just your player agency in that your choices matter in the story, but wow, this is a very unique experience. It's not just, I'm not just anybody. My character is, these feats, these custom abilities exist nowhere else in the world. It's just for this character in this moment, in this campaign. It's very personal. It's very rewarding to have that.
Now, you've gone ahead and created a couple classes over on your site. We've done a handful of digital products that we can found at nerdarchy.com. Not so many, class options, but we do have other things to expand the rules. Do you want to go into the classes real quick that we made?
So it was, we have the Shaman and Alchemist classes done now. And the whole process was, what doesn't, can I reproduce this in other ways? And found that no, there's not really a non-magical, chemically kind of disposed character. And so came up with, following the format, 3 archetypes, and compared it to, kind of became a half caster, and following a little of the warlock model, the shaman that followed that quite a bit. I got a lot of inspiration from World of Warcraft in the initial design, and those classes are done. We're almost done with an artificer, which is...
So you're trying to get out before Wizards does?
That's my hope. It's so close to done, but one of the things that I learned a lot of, especially doing a lot of collaboration, getting my patrons and community to come in and get their own thoughts and feedback on it, was the precision of the language. That initially, I just kind of, here's an ability. But when I started working and doing this, I started emulating the 5e the wording and phrasing.
The verbiage is going to, put people either on edge or at ease.
Absolutely.
And you look at things, and I've seen a lot of products, that other people have made. I cringe anytime somebody mentions, the wiki stuff. But this, there are lots of things out there, and if you look at things and it reads just like it would be right out of the player's handbook, it's like, okay, well, that sounds right, and you have to read through a couple times to really figure out, okay, does this really fit? Does it fit the level? Does it fit the theme of the class? But if you go completely bonkers and be like, yeah, you just get this, it sets people more off.
There's not a sense of authenticity of, you've thought about this a little bit before putting it together.
But if you're doing this for your game at home, that part doesn't matter as much. You can go ahead and be like, okay, all right, Ryan, my, player who's playing the fighter, and you want to go into this completely, apeshit style of fighting. All right, you're going to do this instead. You made that archetype, that subclass for fighter, and they get this suite of abilities. Don't care about verbiage, don't care about balance. Allow that player to go with that style, have a little bit of fun with it, and give abilities that make sense for that overall style and balance with the other fighter options that are out there.
And if you're concerned with the balance or things, then getting other people, you can just post it on many Facebook pages or forums. Not Reddit, I hate Reddit, but there's probably really good homebrew forums on Reddit, I'm sure. But I mean, you get their feedback.
You could even go to some of those places. I know that there's a great community on Facebook with the 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons group, and you could ask for advice. Hey, my player wants to do this. Does anybody have any suggestions for making this archetype? Yeah. And I guarantee you, people will weigh in. Some people will tell you, don't use unofficial stuff, but other people will be far more supportive and give you suggestions and ideas. And who knows, they might help you write it.
Yeah, publishing has been very rewarding. I mean, financially, yes. To be able to create something and put it in people's hands has been a really great feeling. But rewarding in the understanding the game better, the mechanics better, just taking the time to understand the language and why the game works the way it does. And you also see so many places where there are gaps. There's grossly underused mechanics. I think you did a video on hit die and how that is so woefully underused in so many ways.
We actually we made a whole product on that hit dice to heroics. Again, that's on the Nerdarchy store. And it's something that it's like, all right, if your group plays like ours, we do one combat a session. There's not this whole dungeon crawl style feel. We're not caring as much about the short rest, so the hit dice kind of just sit there. Well, now you have options. You're not usually getting a lot of things out of it because your hit dice expenditure is equal to your proficiency die. So your proficiency die is only really going to be a third of what you've got to play with at best. So therefore, you can go in and say, all right, well, I'll do this ability. And, I get that back just like all my other stuff. So that's a great way to use homebrew stuff. Most DMs make new monsters. Most DMs make new magic items because the stuff in the books aren't going to fit specifically to the need for their game. So if you're willing to take that level of homebrew, why can't you go that one step further and say, hey, let's use unofficial class options as well?
Yeah, there's no restrictions. No black helicopters are going to show up if you're using unofficial stuff or third-party stuff. Or
I don't know. There was that one story I heard.
Besides that one time, it was in Jersey, I'm pretty sure. But it's if you just don't realize that it's okay to do it, and it can be very rewarding. There are plenty of tutorials on how to do it. But I think maybe the main message coming here is it's okay to homebrew. You're already probably homebrewing, and homebrewing can do so much for your game. Don't worry about professionalism. Don't worry about balance. Make the game as great as you can for those 5 people with you.
The Dungeon Master's Guide already tells you it's your game. Play it how you want. We're not going to tell you what's right, what's wrong for your game. This is us just saying that, we do it, we love it, and we suggest that you do it too. Thank you so much for coming on, Andrew, hanging out with us at Gen Con. One last time, if you want to tell everybody where they can find you, what you got going on.
Sure. Dawnforgedcast on YouTube and other places. I'm not... Social media is a thing. I should do it, but you can find... We have a weekly game there, but it's typically a lot of tutorials, a lot of builds and game ideas for D&D, but we're looking to expand into. Well, I'm gonna try some vampire.
Okay.
Which is a great departure from my normal vein of things. But yeah, that's Dawnforgedcast, and it's really great to be on Nerdarchy, especially in person.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you guys out there, or thank you for you guys out there. If you have any stories that you want to share in regards to homebrewing, why you do it, why you don't, down in the comments below. Continue your story, share your story. While you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, stay nerdy.